Hi folks, you're with Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the increasing issue of Indians from the subcontinent arriving in the West and either arriving illegally, although the bigger issue, whether it be in the United States or Australia, is Indians overstaying their visa. This could be a tourist visa or a short-term work visa or indeed a student visa. So just overstaying the visa, and somehow they disappear into the Indian diaspora that's very tight and very closely packed and linked, and never to be seen from again. And it seems that the authorities either don't want to or are unable, or the Indian sort of diaspora is impenetrable and they can't find the visa overstays, and somehow yet these people can get work and stay in the United States or the West generally. Now, the Australian government, I think it was a year ago, claimed that somewhere around 20,000 Indians were staying illegal in Australia, primarily visa overstays. But given how this was just thrown off as a very matter-of-fact issue, I would think it's much higher than 20,000. If they say 20,000 and try to make out, it's no big deal, it's nothing to worry about, then it's probably several times that, 100,000 plus. And given the amount of Indians around the place on, and all sorts of take out food and the like, then, and I'll come back to that in a minute, we can be supremely confident, I believe, that there's a vast number of visa overstays. Now, we need to I guess, understand the wider issues here. But in the United States, depending on whose numbers you look at, it's anywhere between 800,000 and 1.3 million Indians are again, primarily visa overstays, are residing in the US, illegal aliens. There's an increasing number of Indians coming across the southern border, particularly from the province of Punjab, which I've noticed here in Australia. Every Indian you run into seems to come from the Punjab area. So some are Sikhs, some not, but there seems to have been a real uptick in people from the Punjab, and by the way, that think they're super entitled to come to the West, as many Indians do. There's something else that I don't know if people in the West can fully appreciate. This idea of social prestige, it's seen very differently in these third world countries, India in particular. The concept of social prestige also comes with a non-accountability. You're not accountable because your social prestige is such that you can't be held accountable. You're a god almost. And also what gives bragging rights. For example, if you have a relative that's got into the West, a first world white Western country, if you've got a relative that's gone in there, you're an Indian family, you have suddenly immense social prestige in the village or the town or the suburb or the within your social circles. My son or daughter's gone to Australia or America, and they're a student, or they've got a degree there at a university, they've got a job there, then suddenly you are someone of huge social prestige. This is the ambition of almost every Indian. Remember, there's a billion, the population of India is nearly 1.5 billion, and over a billion people want to get the fuck out of India and they want to get to the West. They've got no concept that if they all move to the West, they'll turn the West into a third world shithole. That they cannot conceive. And if all these Indians, Indians are so clever. All these Indians, they're so clever and so hardworking. Well, if that is the case, if that's so, why is India a basket case? And why? Now, the amount of money that they'll pay to get to the West in bribes and so on is quite astonishing. 75,000 US dollars in bribes to whoever. Doesn't matter whether it's immigration officials or people smugglers, or it doesn't matter. But given that the average wage is $2,000 or $3,000 a year, and you can afford $75,000 in bribes, then that's the equivalent of something like 25, 30 years of income. Now, for someone who's in their 20s, Where do you get that money from? I mean, how can you pay all that? And like jobs in the public service in India and a lot of the private sector, any job that pays above the average wage in India, I mean, you can be looking at 3,000 or 4,000, 5,000 job applicants for each job. So the only way to jump the queue isn't through credentials; it's through bribing people. So bribing is just a way of life. Anyone that doesn't do it is a moron. Anyone that doesn't bribe has got moral failing stamped all over them. That's how you do things. That's how you get things done. And the prestige, there's a lot of social prestige with making and giving bribes, because if you've got more money than someone else and you can bribe them, it means you're a morally superior person because you have access to more money, and therefore you could bribe someone to get what you wanted, whether it's immigration or a job or something else. So we need to understand the concept of social prestige in India, what it means. So, to be able to pay a big bribe, for example, means you're a heavy hitter. You're a kick-ass dude. And so they have a lot of attitudes to social prestige, which are the complete reverse of what we have or once had anyway in the West. Now, in terms of some time ago, I was not that long ago, a few years ago, I was walking past and this is an area where there are a lot of migrants, so it's very easy for people to sort of disappear into the wider diaspora if they're illegals. But there was quite a large sort of restaurant that have a lot of flunky labour and cleaners and everything there, and the Department of Immigration came along, and you've never seen pandemonium descend on a place so quickly. Suddenly everyone was trying to jump out of windows and go out back doors and run away, and they just spread off in all directions. So that goes to show how many illegals were there. And then the same with a strip of shops that employ just take-out food stores, that sort of thing, that employ Indians. Bodegas, as it's called in the United States, and sort of corner stores. And again, the same sort of thing. Department of Immigration arrives, and there are bodies peeling off all directions. So there are clearly a lot of illegals, and they bribed people and done all sorts of things to be able to get to a first world country. But it's the number of illegals. In Australia, the problems probably in illegals, visa overstays isn't as big a deal as it is in the US, but Australia's got a much smaller population. So I think if there's, say 1.2 million Indian illegals in the United States, I would think there's easily 100,000 in Australia that are illegals. Now, what do you do about deporting if the President-elect Trump's program or platform is adhered to? Then there'll be a lot of Indians that are being sent back. Now, in Australia, as soon as the government puts any cap on migration, or gets tough on illegal migration, or cuts down on student visas, they instantly at the same time they lower the bar for mass migrants, and they'll talk tough about we only have people that can speak good English and they've got internationally recognised qualifications. That's bullshit, absolute bullshit. There are illiterate peasants that can't speak well. Now, because of the corruption that goes on in these third world countries like India, where there is so much social prestige associated with getting to the West, that they will do anything to make it happen. Any bribery, any trickery, anything they will resort to, because again, it doesn't matter what they do. The social prestige is just in getting to the West, and that's it. Once you've done that, your family back in India has social prestige in vast quantities. So the bribery and corruption needs to ideally be clamped down on, and the bar significantly raised, and testing for English and qualifications needs to be independently assessed, and in ways that are immune to corruption. You see this all over Australia now. You have Chinese people, Indian people. These people have come from massively corrupt countries. Teachers here are offered, huge inducements to say, well, you got to pass me. I want my kid to be student of the year, or I want their finger painting to be the best one and win the prize. That sort of, and they'll pay thousands of dollars to teach. Teachers are being offered thousands of dollars to do this. Now, this sort of corruption is hardly helpful to a merit-based society, but it kind of fits in perversely into affirmative action and diversity, equity, inclusion type society. So hopefully, again, as President-elect Trump's policies start to have an effect and merit returns, then hopefully the corruption will be gone with it, and this propensity for corruption. And because the Indians can't not think that way. Their attitude is the corruption is how it's done, as most, or anyone from third world countries. That's how you do things. And so the idea of a merit system is something they can't conceive. And also it's a risk to their social prestige, because you can create and predict and plan your life ahead by who you can bribe. So you go to some university in India and get a PhD or whatever, and you've just bribed someone to get it. But at least you have the prestige. Look, I've got a PhD. And so the maintenance of prestige is really the primary driver. And I found this in hiring and I've mentioned this before, in hiring the early batch of Indians who all claim to be computer scientists and have PhD in computer programming and this sort of thing, that they couldn't cut a line of code to save their lives. They could barely switch the computer on, let alone cut a line of code. And so when I sort of held them to it and said, look, you've got to, stop your blustering, stop your bullshit. You have to cut a line of code in front of me. And of course, we're in a high trust society like Australia. If someone says they got a PhD and they talk a decent enough fight, you say, okay, well, all right then, fine. Let's give you a go. And they were outraged that these Brahmins, the upper caste of India, outraged that they were being held to account. And that they tried to explain to me, look, people of our, Brahmins, people of our social prestige, we don't get questioned. We don't have to account for it. We don't have to justify. We don't have to prove anything. Our social prestige is so great in society that we're not held to account. We're not held to a standard. And it's outrageous that you're trying to. Well, I'm not here to do work or to produce and do anything productive. You've hired me because of my social prestige, because that's how it would have been in India. You go, no, buddy, you've actually been hired to do a job. You've got to produce something here. And they just couldn't, they just stare blankly at me. They just couldn't get it. And a lot of Indians coming along still have that, certainly, they have that same view. And again, tied into this Indian perception or subcontinent perception, you could almost say that it infects also people in Pakistan and Bangladesh and so on, the Muslim sort of North Indian Muslim type diaspora. Now, there's a couple of Indian people I was talking to recently, and one was saying, look, who's going to do all the jobs that, because, Brahmin labour hire firms, we bring out all the peasants that do all the work in the takeout chicken shops or delivering, Amazon deliveries or that sort of, we bring out all the people that do that, that nice cheap peasant labour that you rely on. So if Indian peasants stop coming, then who's going to do all these things for you? Who's going to, who's going to deliver your pizzas and so on? Now, I do see the point, but they have no concept of and cannot grasp how that their mere existence and coming in here and doing these jobs has created an artificial, unsustainable economy that's now a special underground subset economy in its own right. It doesn't fit into the wider competitive capitalist economy at all. It's the equivalent of a socialist planned economy, and is doing no good, is adding no value, be it technical, be it intellectual, be it social, whatever, to the wider economy. So if these peasant Indians were all to go, then that sector of the economy would have to adjust to a competitive market economy, which is where it should always have been. Now, does that mean there'll be a shake-up as in terms of the number of take out chicken shops or the number of pizza shops. I'm sure it'll be but that shake-up will be much for the better in creating a productive economy, because funds are deploying in areas of the economy based purely on third world peasant labour, not on the merits of the business itself. So, and in terms of the Indian diaspora, it's staying very tightly within its own confines, that's a huge problem in itself, because they don't see they're part of the wider economy or the national society. They see they're an Indian enclave within a white society, and they've got a very much an us and them view. Now, they're quite happy to take a broad view of things when they're taking money from white people. That's fine. But in terms of sharing money with white people, that's a whole new ballgame. And you don't want people in your midst, in any economy, in any place, you don't want people in your midst who take that view and have that view. And the Indians you can find exceptions. Yeah. But an Indian was sort of talking to me recently about they were happy to make friends with white Australians, but the reason they don't have any white Australian friends and everyone they know and hang out with is Indian. The reason for that is that Australians aren't friendly to them. It's the white Australians' fault. It's their fault. They're the racists. They're the Nazis. They're the Hitlers. We Indians, we're very open and friendly, and we have friends from everywhere. No, you don't. Yeah, that's bullshit. So the view that she was doing most of the talking, but the view that they had was that they were friendly, they were quite happy. But once you start to pick apart their position, they think, well, we don't want to be friends with low class Australians, white people. We're a superior caste of people. We're morally superior, spiritually superior, intellectually superior. We're superior in every way. So we only want to deal with the upper echelons of white society, and then we want to be treated as superior equals, and we're quite happy to accept those two. So really, their terms of engagement would be untenable under any circumstances. I mean, other Brahmins may think that's fine, but I would find it irksome. In fact, I did find it irksome. But their view is no. We're open and friendly. It's the white people's fault, and this is something that the globalist cabal and the agitators and the stirrers take up. That if for example, white and non-white people aren't interbreeding and procreating and getting married, then it's only white people's fault. No one else's. Only white people can be at fault because they're racist Nazis, and this is hardly helpful. And I'm hoping again that President Trump's program will break down will deport, if you like, any Indians or any people from the third world who don't want to integrate into Western society. And once that's done, that will create a very different environment, and one that will be, I think, much for the better. Being a Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.